All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I am your host, Jonah Mitchell. And in this show, I do my best to help simplify the weight loss process for chronic dieters. And as you could see in the title of this episode, this is probably the vast majority of what I do for people, is help get you out of your head. And really, I was just, before I even hit record, sorry, I'm thirsty. Give me 1 second. Drinking tea. Yeah, before I even hit record, I was just telling a story about how me and Hannah were at a Christmas party last night. And, when I'm in public and people know what I do, they always ask me a bunch of questions, and the food was catered. And we got Raisin Canes, crumble cookies, and Qdoba tacos. Very interesting food combo, to be honest. And a lot of people asked me, like, because I was eating cookies and I was enjoying the food. A lot of them were asking me, how can you eat so healthy? Do I just have to work out harder, or not work? How can you eat this stuff and not gain weight? And it's like, well, it's all about understanding, right? But really, this was just the vast majority of the questions I got last night. But really, a lot of them were like, well, I used to do this and I used to be super successful, but I don't know what happened. I can't do that anymore. Why is that? Or I'm motivated for a while and I don't stick with it. Or they do things that they've done things in the past that were really restrictive. It's like, oh, the only way I lost weight when I cut out all the carbs and the sweets and all the fun stuff. Or they tell me stories about their friends who find success and they intermittent fast, they don't eat out, they don't drink alcohol, and they're like, I don't want to live that life, which is all totally normal, right? And I when I'm going out in public like this and I'm getting these questions, right? Because I do my best to answer them online as often as possible. That gets a bit overwhelming sometimes. That's why I do the podcast. It's kind of a recharge for me. And ultimately, a lot of these problems are, or a lot of these questions, a lot of these misunderstandings are because we just don't fully understand the context of each scenario, of the benefits and the possible detriments. We are so focused on the end result in our head that you put a lot of rules and a lot of regulations and restrictions on what it means to be successful without really seeing what the actual problems are, right? And when it comes to getting out of your head around a lot of this, a lot of times we'll second guess ourselves, we'll overcomplicate things, we'll make things harder than they need to be because we lack understanding, because we've heard things from other people, we've seen some sort of success in the past that maybe was too restrictive, right? Well, even though the scale was down, maybe your relationship with your food was now ruined, and now you had a hard time in enjoying the holidays, enjoying social events, right? There's so many things that we get so worried about without even realizing it because we're living in our head all the time. And I do this the same thing. I tend to be an overthinker, right? And I overthink everything to a T. And it gets to a point where, like, it'll be just one conversation and I'll think my way into saying that the conversation was a horrible conversation instead of it being for what it actually was, which is a really good conversation. I did a good job, and they did a good job, right? But in my head, I'm like worrying about, like, I could have said something differently, or I thought of jokes I could have said, and it gets like this social anxiety about it, right? And a lot of the time it comes around like our nutrition and our overall health. We overthink the process of, like, well, the carbs are considered unhealthy and fattening. And it's like, well, I had one piece of Texas toast. Like, is that going to counteract everything that I'm doing? Is that going to make me gain all the weight back that I lost? Even though I've been quote unquote good all week, and now I had one piece of bread. Now I've ruined all my progress. Why even keep going? And like, we just kind of goes into a spiral. And there's a reason for this. there's a reason our brain likes to bounce around, especially when we're like kind of talking back and forth to ourselves, and we have these rules and these misunderstandings of like, I can't eat out, I can't drink soda, I can't do all these considered bad things, quote unquote bad things. And when we do them, we get in our head about it, and it counteracts and forces us to focus on everything that we're not doing, or everything that we're not doing well. And the reason it does this is because our brain is trained to focus on what it cares about, right? And I did like a Instagram story post just to to help remind people how to get unstuck and to find real progress. And if you're in my Facebook group, or if you've been following me for a while, I've talked about Win Wednesdays. Where I want people to celebrate all the wins that they have going on in their life, so they can start training their brain to find the good things that they're doing, to remind them of the good things, and to help rewire this relationship of what's good, what's bad, what you think you have to do, and what actually aligns with you. Like, if you do not plan on going without carbs for the rest of your life, probably going low carb to lose weight is not a good idea. Right. But in our head, we found success with that in the past. We hear others talk about going vegan, being keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, and clean eating, and all this stupid rules, right? Like, and there's no full context. But again, because we're trained to like just take things for what they are and not really elaborate, we just automatically say, yep, that must be true. And then we give ourselves these rules, and then when we don't fit into those rules, it starts to chase and attach to all the things that we are also not doing correctly. And it's a survival tool. Our brain likes predictability. Our brain likes to understand its surroundings. And this is how we've evolved for millions of years. We're the most adaptable creatures on the planet. However, it's become our downfall in today's day and age, where it's very easy to be reminded of everything that you don't have, of everything that you lack, of how uncomfortable with where you're at in your current situation. And when we match that same kind of thought process with our efforts, where we're trying to solve a problem with a solution that doesn't truly fit our lives, that creates more rules and restrictions, we're just amplifying the problems. We're extending our time period. That's going to make that we're extending the time that it takes to get to our goals, because we are living in our head with all these rules, with all these misunderstandings. When we're talking to ourselves, we're always focused on everything that we're not doing. It's like, man, I got all my water in, but I could have gone to the gym more. I could have got more steps. I could have had more vegetables. I could have eaten more protein. I could have worked out more. It's like, but hold on, chill out. That's cool that like you're aware of all the possible things that you can do to improve, but who is it helping by beating yourself up for focusing on those things? Nobody. No one. Like, I don't think it feels pretty. I understand, because it feels pretty cathartic to beat yourself up, right? Like, there's a certain level of like I don't want to say enjoyment, but like, yeah, cathartic is, I think, I can't really define it, but like, it feels good to beat yourself up. That's my general understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That's my general understanding of the word, where it's like something like, well, if I didn't do it, if I don't beat myself up for it, like if I don't feel that guilt or shame, like I won't learn anything from it. But repeating it and doing it over and over and over again and it's not changing the end result. Right? It's not helping anybody. It's only further eroding your own mental state that really is 80% of this whole process, right? Our brain likes to amplify the problem because it likes to be predictable and likes to keep us safe. It likes things to be predictable and likes to keep us safe. It doesn't like to feel out of control. It doesn't like to feel like it doesn't know what's coming. Even if we're in a terrible situation, I haven't said this in a while, but our brains and our bodies will make a terrible situation bearable, right? We'll get used to feeling uncomfortable. We'll get used to not being where we want to be. We won't be happy, right? But we'll get used to where we're currently at, because it doesn't require much change, because our brain and our body loves predictability. It's trained to focus on what it knows. So when we're focusing on, hey, I'm kind of pinballing all over the place here, but just backtrack a little bit. I want you to understand that, so that when we focus on all the things that you do right, you're essentially telling your brain to shut the hell up and acknowledge the fact that, hey, you're doing something, right? And even if it's not to the level that you think you should be, you haven't proven to your brain that you can even get to that level. But if you can prove to your brain that you can commit to some small thing, it starts to dampen that 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 the volume of the miserable feelings that come into everything when we focus on everything we lack. We start proving our brain wrong that, hey, we can commit to something, we can stick to something, right? Even if it's not all the things that we think we have to do, right? Because when we think we have a long list of things that we have to accomplish to be healthy, it becomes very daunting, especially this time of year, holiday season, right? There's so many things going on right now. And to add another list of 10 things going on, like I did a master class about this a few weeks ago. And to add like 10 things to that list makes it so much more difficult when we're already juggling another 50 things that with other people around us, with the time of year and all the crazy people out there right now on the roads, because they're trying to do the same thing that we're trying to do. I get a drink of tea, sorry. And it becomes very all of it is just reminding your brain, because you're not accomplishing what you think you have to. So then your brain looks for all those reasons to feel like you're not accomplishing, you're not healthy, you're not doing everything that you can possibly be, and then it just continues to amplify, right? But by getting out of your head, or by allowing you to acknowledge those things, and getting out of your head is acknowledgement, and saying, hey, I may not be able to do all these things, but I can do one or two. And if it's just your water, maybe it's just your steps, start there. Stop trying to make this process harder than it needs to be. Stop holding yourself to a standard that you have yet to prove to yourself. This is super important when it comes to getting out of your head. If you let your head just run rampant and always tell you everything that you're doing wrong, and you don't see that the only way to, and that you think you have to do everything all the time, all at once to be right, you're always going to be on this perpetual loop that makes you feel worse. I worked with a woman earlier this year who happened to be at the party last night that I was at. And at the beginning of the year, she was like, I'm so ready, so committed to making change and to seeing results. And she was. She did amazing. She did amazing. And she learned a lot with me and Hannah and Karen. And after, as the year went on, she was still so focused on the end result that when things got hard, when work got back to normal for her job, and this is by no means a blaming her by any means. It's more me taking it personally that I wasn't able to give her enough to help her see this, that even if you're not able to do all the things that technically will lead you to your health goal, doesn't mean that you still can't find success. Right. And so the woman, she didn't ask any questions, but I know where she was to where she's at now. And I know she's not happy about it. Right. But she's making the best of it. And when we talked a little bit, I know I heard it in her voice that she's focusing on just one thing right now, which she learned the lesson, which is good, because when we try to focus on 10 things, it gets very daunting. Right. Anyway, start of the year, great. Things got tough. She put herself on the back burner and she started focusing, because based off of what we were teaching, I ran a course this year that was like giving the outline of like what a daily checklist would look like to help sustain your goals, right? And it can be a lot, and if we don't know how to shift gears and focus on a couple things and know that that's okay, then we're reminded of everything that we can't do. And again, brain will focus on what it wants to focus on. But if we can learn to adjust and shift the focus to understand everything that you can do right now, right? Get out of your head is kind of get out of the normal thought process of what you automatically do, right? You don't even think about a lot of the negative things or the frustrating parts. They just kind of happen, right? The joys of our brain, right? But letting those play on a repeat is not getting out of your head. Getting out of your head is say, hey, like, this genuinely doesn't work for me right now, and that's okay. What can work for me right now, right? And honestly, talking to yourself, writing about it is probably some of the most underrated things that you could possibly do. I think I've said this a couple of times on the podcast or in the Facebook group, or I know I've been saying it to my clients lately, but the crazy people are the ones who don't talk to themselves. And because, if we don't talk to ourselves, if we don't question our thoughts, we don't actually get to acknowledge what we're trying to accomplish. I've been talking a lot about mindset lately, and it's been on my brain a lot, because ultimately all the nutritional information, all the fitness information I can provide means nothing if you think that when I teach you about gut health, if you think that's like you have to follow the standards of gut health, which could relate to what clean eating, right? And you go to a Christmas party and you're unable to sustain a clean eating. I keep using quotations for clean eating, a clean diet, and I just taught you a lot about gut health, and you're not in the best mental place right now. You have another thing to be like, oh, I just fucked up my gut health, and now I feel bad about it, right? But like, if we don't get out of our own way with what we think is success first, if we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge the fact that we live in our heads more often than we should, and that we continue to let a song on repeat continue to mess us up, where the song is everything that you're doing wrong, and if we can't acknowledge that that's the first priority, is to say, hey, you're not doing everything wrong, right? It's good that there's a lot of things more you could be doing, but that does not mean you have to be good at them all right now. You cannot change everything all at once. I mean, you can. It's very difficult to sustain, right? It's very difficult. This is why motivation is super cool in the beginning. Everyone sees so many results, but they realize when motivation is gone and all that change becomes much more difficult to sustain, they go right back to where they were in the beginning. Where if we start gradually and start proving your brain wrong that you can focus on the things that on small things consistently, eventually you'll be able to layer every piece of the puzzle that will help you get to your goals. But this gradual process where you focus on one or two at a time, right? It doesn't feel daunting, it doesn't feel overwhelming, and it reframes how you see the journey, reframes all the rules that you've created for yourself, and it reframes the actual process to achieve your results. It doesn't come from super restrictive and just being committed and disciplined for 3 to 6 months at a time. It comes from understanding it comes from understanding how to show up the best way you can no matter what. It comes to understanding and after you have that, once you've understood that level of consistency, then you get to make the adjustment of like, okay, I could push a little bit harder here. Go, oh great, this is getting a little bit too tough because of the time of year. I can dial it back, and that doesn't mean I'm losing any progress. I'm still maintaining momentum. And this is you talking to yourself and acknowledging the fact that, hey, what I used to think of perfection and doing all this long list of things, and I had to do them all the time, no longer helps me. And then beating myself up for doing those things is no longer helping me. Acknowledging those facts and say, hey, something small right now is better than nothing, and doing the best you can, separating the intrusive negative thoughts that continue to plague us, and then allow your own voice to step up to the plate and say, hey, I can't do all this right now, and that's okay. I can do one or two things, and then acknowledge the fact that you did do those one or two things, and give yourself a pat on the back, right? It doesn't have to be a celebration of like, I got my 3,000 steps a day, right? Like, yay me, woohoo. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's like, hey, I did that. I got this. I can do simple things. Right? Because when we do simple things consistently, the hard part becomes doing those. They transition to being hard, because now the simple things of being done consistently, or doing simple things consistently, is the basis of doing hard things. Doing hard things is doing simple things for extended periods of time. That's it. Like, when you get like, and that's not necessarily it, but that's the core basis of everything, right? The hard part is doing the simple things over and over and over and over and over again. And it's very difficult to understand that concept, where everyone's looking for the quick fix, the one shot solution, the pill that will fix all their problems, when in reality, it's not a pill. It's not a one-stop shop. It's really starts with understanding, hey, this ground level, before I even start building the roof or the walls and the roof, the foundation, is giving yourself the freedom to say, what I thought I knew doesn't actually help, makes my life harder, and acknowledge the fact that this is living in my head and believing the thoughts that come into my head without questioning them is not helping me. And reframing and taking that and acknowledging that and saying, hey, I can do small things and take small action. I can take that small action, and that small action will make me feel better, and feeling better will actually lead to motivation to stay consistent. It's not motivation, action, results. It's action, results, motivation. And it doesn't always, results does not always look like inches lost, and weight lost. It also, it just comes from feeling better, having more energy, improved digestion. You feel less gross. You stop beating yourself up as much. That's all progress. But because we're so focused on a number or a certain, I almost said shoe size, clothes size, it gets very difficult to remind ourselves of that stuff. So, yeah, I think I'm done. I hope that made sense. I think I was a little bit all over the place today, but I hope you learned something. I hope it was valuable. I hope you found it valuable. And I hope it connected. And like I know I keep talking about very similar things. If you're paying attention. If not, that's no big deal. If this is the first time you heard me talk about it, cool, awesome. I really want to make sure you understand, like, showing up and allowing yourself to get out of your own head about everything that you lack and everything that you don't do, and learn to actually learn to acknowledge that, like, hey, like, I used to think this way, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not actually helping me, and adjust it. Say, well, what can I do? What am I doing consistently? And acknowledge the fact that even if it's small, you acknowledging it is a reminder that you can do it. You will remind yourself of everything that you can accomplish instead of everything that you're not. And let that be the basis of getting out of your head and building the momentum that will honestly help you find much more success than motivation ever will. All right. So I'm going to sign off for the rest of the day. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.